Showtime.
Yeah.
We're live. August 28th. Good morning, everybody. Market looked to be mixed this morning, but overall looks to be positive. Futures are pumping right now. Dow seems to want to open up about 180 points. Nasdaq about 40. S&P up about 16. And yesterday was also mixed. For a while, it looked like the market was maybe going to get one of those midday reversals. Ended up being somewhat of a fake out, but I'd say for the most part, tech was pretty weak yesterday, aside from a few names. And, we saw what happened with DraftKings, where the NBA decided they were ultimately going to play. DraftKings went up short term, kind of went back down. That'll be an interesting stock to follow today. And
on that one, DraftKings was downgraded by Morgan Stanley this morning to a market perform with a price target of 37. So that's why it's weak today.
I'm sure they have someone internally with their own agenda on that. These guys are they're full of shit. Like, it's unbelievable. Every time I see that, I'm like, oh, I'm going the other way on that. I don't buy into any of that.
Yeah. And then
yesterday got a downgrade too last week. It made no sense. When you actually looked at the downgrade, I think someone had a short on it that wrote that. I'd like them to start looking into these things more.
I mean,
it's very complicated.
It's not complicated. People all have their own agenda, and the media is able to narrate that.
Well, Dak, could you kind of talk about what goes into the upgrades and downgrades a little bit?
Well, there's, two tiers of brokers out there, the research houses, I quote, research houses, and investment banks. And historically, you could count on the research houses, like Sanford Bernstein would be an example, of having real solid analysts and good research. But what's happened over time, investment banking has become so important that they want the best analysts to cover the companies that are going to be doing business with Goldman and Morgan Stanley, et cetera. So they would hire away these analysts for big money. So the best analysts would end up at the investment banks. But that also takes away some of their independence in how they look at companies. And you don't feel like you get a real solid look at a company when it comes from an investment bank, because you don't know what the agenda is behind it. Are they coming out with a secondary? Are they doing other business with the firm that you don't want to come out with a sell recommendation? And that's the reason you don't see a lot of sell recommendations on Wall Street. But when a research report comes from one of the smaller brokers, I take it more seriously, because I think they don't have an agenda like the big guys.
So Morgan Stanley, you think, probably is more in the camp of a company that has an agenda?
Yeah, then like they would never come up, I don't think, with a sell on DraftKings unless things were horrible. It's tricky, and it's supposed to be independent within those firms. They call them Chinese walls, but there's still political pressure internally for these analysts to get in line with the company line.
That's why they're called analysts. They analyze, and a lot of times they're way off. It's like weathermen.
Well, they have good criteria to analyze stocks. The question is whether they stretch it a little bit when they're in the big firms.
It'll be interesting to keep an eye on that, along with a bunch of other names, because Dad, like you said, call options expire today. So there's always going to be that Friday movement. Could you kind of talk about the action that comes into play when you're dealing with that? Is it almost something you can predict, or is it going to be different every time?
No, it's not anything more than a short-term blip in the action in the stock, but there was a lot of call buying in DraftKings, I think, a week ago for this expiration. And that usually means that people, solidly believe that the stock is going to get above that strike price. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen. But I think the pressure towards 40 was pretty significant. You saw it more, I think, 2 days ago than today, than yesterday. And now it probably won't make it.
Yeah, and then it looks like what's starting to happen, and I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the immediate rapid testing that they came out with yesterday. It looks like once again, and I don't know if it's going to end up being a false hope type of thing, but it does seem like there's this rotation trade going on where small cap and industrial stocks yesterday seemed to take a front seat, tech seemed to take a back seat. That seems like it wants to continue today. I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that. Like, I know, I've brought up companies like Dave & Buster on here. That's a company that was up massively yesterday, and that looks like it's going to continue to be up a lot today. And it just seems like names that haven't really recovered, that are still down 50+% year over year and haven't really rebounded from the pandemic. If there's ever a time where they're going to get their rally, maybe it's right now. But I will end that with the last few times it seemed this way, it's been a fake out. So maybe this time it's for real. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it seems to me that it is going to continue. And even with all the fake outs, if you look at those charts, they still are trending higher, just at a much slower pace, kind of more of a normal pace than what we've seen in the techs. We're just used to such huge moves coming out of the techs. And when you see small moves in the banks and industrials, you kind of think, this is not too exciting, but it's more normal. I saw Coca-Cola is doing a consolidation of divisions. That stock looks like if it can get through 50, has some room, and it's still $10 away from its all-time high. So, there's a few stocks in there that have not had the big moves yet. And the Dow is creeping up towards its all-time high to confirm NASDAQ and the S&P, which already are well through it. So it wouldn't surprise me if these things continue to move.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good time if you don't own any airline stocks. Like I don't own any at the moment, to get in with the Powell news yesterday kind of just that was like the narrative, how he's going to be letting things run. And I think at the end of the day, when you think about these rapid tests, what comes to mind immediately for me is, okay, time to jump on the airlines. You're going to have way more people naturally down to fly. The values are insane. I've never liked the airline business, but for the stocks, they figured it out. Most of these guys are not going to go under. You pick the right airline, you'll be in great shape here in 6 to 9 months with returns. So maybe a Southwest, a Delta could be a good time to jump on that train and just hold today.
Yeah, and I do feel the same way.
You can still play those, kind of plays through Booking, which we've talked about, and Boeing.
Yeah, I might get back on Boeing today. I've got out a while ago, and might be time to jump back ship on there.
And then, I look at, and not this name specifically, but names like, for example, Six Flags. These are the names that have really just fallen off a cliff since the pandemic and have not actually seen anything close to the recovery of some of these other names, where if they're going to get the type of rally that, not even like we saw in technology, but just to get back to somewhere around the levels that they were pre-February, then, you look at companies like Dave & Buster's and like Six Flags and like Planet Fitness, and I like Planet Fitness the most out of them because I think that even if things get bad again with the virus, they seem like they're proving to be a company that's going to do well. But yeah, I think there might be better
I'm
games.
pretty excited about F45. It opens in New Jersey, Eric's Place, on September 2nd.
I love
There
it.
you go. Bob's flying to Jersey just to get in there.
Get a workout, huh?
That's definitely exciting. And yeah, and look, we can't not talk about what's going on with Tesla and the 1 day breather that it had 2 days ago, and now it was up again massively, I think, yesterday, and today again pre-market it's up over $50. I mean, this stock, you just can't slow it down. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah, it's Tesla. We know the deal. Why don't we talk about Beyond Meat? Finally, you guys know I've been huge on them. Yesterday, they came out with big news with the shipping to the door. And that, I'm telling you, like this, I bought more yesterday under 133. I'm thinking about buying more today. Like anything, that stock is going to just start hitting new legs when all this news starts piling in, which will all be great. I just think there's so many positive catalysts that haven't even come out yet in the media with them. And I don't see the downside unless someone comes out with some news about something in their ingredients that's not good, which I've done my homework. They're all fine. I think it's a hell of a buy here.
Well, this latest move is all on the online business now. You mentioned the word. I think if you just mention the word online and delivery in the same sentence, your stocks could jump in 5 to 10%.
Well, that's why we're in that business.
Look, I think the risk is when you see a stock move on that type of headline yesterday, it wasn't anything necessarily changing with the company. It was futuristic speculation. I think you risk
that wasn't speculation at all. That was their brand being cemented as a global leader. There's no speculation there.
You don't know how
it's a concrete play. People think it's speculative. It's not. I've been reading these weekly for months now. They're phenomenal.
I mean, what they announced yesterday is something where you either have to believe in that model working or don't. And it's just there's a lot of unknowns with whether or not it's going to lead to profitability, if it's going to work, if it's going to cost them way more money. And I'm just based on that alone, I kind of think they'll give up the move they had yesterday before they ultimately trudge higher. And
no way.
I played Beyond Meat for a day trade yesterday and kind of did that whole thing. But I don't know. I kind of also think the market's at levels now where you just risk like a midday reversal at any time now over the next couple of days. And any stock that's like had a big movement over the last few days scares me a little. But yeah, look, yesterday they came out and said that they're doing direct to consumer, right?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I don't this, regardless of what's happening with the market, this is to me like the early innings of Tesla.
That may be, but if you look at their numbers, their forward PE right now is over 200. So they better start making money and growing like a weed.
Yep, they will. That people need to eat, Bob.
Yeah, but from where they are right now to justify the stock,
talk to me in a year. So you'll be like, Mike, wow, that was something. Look at that chart. This time next year, just watch where that is.
But it is the same argument as Tesla, where the company is interesting and good, but the stock is way ahead of itself. And obviously, I was wrong on Tesla short term.
And Bob, you'll be wrong there on Beyond, just like Bitcoin. You can't be right on everything.
Right on everything.
It's tough to compare those two stories, but I get what you guys are saying. And then, I mean, Mike, I know you brought. Well, let's first touch on HPQ. So we've brought them up enough times to give ourselves a small pat on the back here. They had their earnings yesterday; they were really good. Stocks, yeah, I mean, it's not up crazy this morning, but who knows? Maybe it can get going. And
it's definitely going to get going. That's heading north of 20 now. After those, what I listened to that earnings call yesterday. Those guys have some bright things ahead. We're going to have a nice run there.
And you had a reiteration by Cowen. They raised their price target to 20 today.
Who?
Cowen.
Who's that?
It's a broker.
Wait, raised who? HPQs?
Yeah.
How clever of them after great earnings.
You're going to see that from a bunch of guys today.
We should just start upgrading companies after they have great earnings.
I wish the volume was way higher on the stock this morning. I guess it had a little bit of an action yesterday. But right now it's trading at 19.15. It was kind of hovering in like the 1930 range this morning. To me, I'm kind of looking at 1950 as like that psychological break point where if it gets over that, then maybe it could run to 20. But it's definitely got some work to do. That's for sure.
Let's talk about Abbott Labs from yesterday, because that was a good story yesterday on this test. And it spent a lot of backing and filling yesterday after it initially opened way up. And now it's trading almost back at the highs from yesterday, or right around where it was yesterday, 114. So if that stock can hold in here, it has more room. I mean, the initial reaction was this thing's going to come in a little bit.
Yeah, and they came out yesterday with the 5-minute testing, which is really has been probably the best news as far as some sort of treatment, or not treatment, but something that makes people feel confident about getting somewhat back to normal. So I think that's
why airlines are a good buy today, because it was kind of like thrown under the radar yesterday with the Powell conference. And when you think about Abbott's play, that naturally is big for travel. So I'm definitely going to be playing that card today.
And when Abbott comes out and says they have something, it's much more realistic than when you get these small companies that come out.
Exactly.
For example, if you punch in OPK, they announced, I think, a couple of weeks ago that they had a quick test.
Ooh.
That stock was down 20% plus yesterday off of the Abbott news. And that just shows you how serious the Abbott story is.
Yeah, it also shows you if you're going to be playing these vaccine headline stacks, you got to almost sell the pot, because they almost always come back down, even though ABC seems like it's different. And then, Mike, yesterday, I know after the show, you texted me a little bit about Disney. To me, they have an interesting chart, because they obviously are going to benefit from any sort of confidence when it comes to getting back to crowded places. And with everything going on with Abbott, you think of companies like Live Nation, you think of companies like Disney. And to me, when you look at what's been going on with these big tech stocks and how they're just crushing their all-time highs, it wouldn't shock me if Disney joins that party at some point. I know.
I love where your head's at, Dan. I'm buying Disney today, actually. I went to bed on that last night and woke up. That was the first thing that came to mind, buy Disney.
I mean, it looks like it's got quick room to 138.
Yeah, that's my first thing at the open this morning, is getting them.
Yeah, I might be with you there. It's something I was even thinking about getting some free market, because I think if the market's going to rally today, I kind of like Disney to rally with it. But
that and Zillow, baby. We've been playing that train. That's something to talk about to our viewers too. Getting on a momentum stock after great earnings. If anyone is playing the day and swing trades, when you see a stock that clearly is on the up and up, and it just keeps breaking through. And, Zillow is interesting because, like Dan always highlights, there's usually low volume intraday a lot of times on that stock. But it's remarkable how it's been pretty easy to predict what's going on with them, where they'll break out, hit a new high, pull back a bit, and then break out more. And it seems like, Dan, I know we've talked a lot about them. They seem ready to really hit new highs here. I know they touched 86 yesterday. They touched 85 the day before. It seems like we're heading towards 90. I know they had a price target raised to 96 a couple weeks ago. I just think short term, they have a lot more momentum in them. I've been jumping in and out of that stock left and right. I'll be jumping back in again today and following those movements.
A lot of Zillow right now is just the hottest real estate market across the country.
Well, keep in mind, they're also an advertising platform. They've had so many more users popping on Zillow now to figure out what they're doing. Are they moving? Are they selling their house, buying a place, looking in new areas of the country? It's been great for them.
Yeah, well, Zillow's in breakout territory with it's hard to look at a chart and say where it's going. The one word of caution is there's only one analyst that has a price target above where it's trading.
Well, yeah, most people have no clue what they're talking about, so that tells me it's going way higher.
Well,
I hear that, and that makes me like them even more. Honestly, it's like a
what I
flying
like
under the radar.
what I like about Zillow, and obviously this isn't necessarily like the shortest term thought process, but any website or platform that has the level of engagement that they do, and they have it where their users love Zillow. I think the same about Pinterest. They are two platforms that are in their early stages of their business development. And anytime you have so many users that are locked into what you're doing, there's a long runway ahead because eventually you're going to figure out how to monetize on that. I know.
And keep in mind, they own Straight Easy too. So anyone that's even looking at something like a rental on, like when I've looked in New York for rentals, I'll go on Straight Easy. That's Zillow's umbrella. So no matter what, they're just running the show, as is Redfin for that matter. That's another interesting play in that sector that's had a great move.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say is, like Dad was saying yesterday, and I definitely think that personally we're within 3 days of a pretty sizable correction, even if it's very short term, and then the rally continues. I think you gotta really be on the defensive side and not be in a situation where you're all in and caught with your pants down if that happens, whether it's this afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, and then you look at which companies might see some sort of nice little steep fall off where you'll have a better opportunity to get in. And again, and maybe I'm dead wrong here. And instead of seeing some sort of correction or pullback, you really just see a horizontal movement for the next few weeks. But it would definitely.
No, I think you're dead on though. And Zillow is a prime example of a stock that would pull back to a 75 and then soar up to 90 on a rally. So
or even pull back to like high 50s or
yeah,
you know
it could easily in a sell-off in the market. Zillow is a perfect example of a stock that could sell off that hard.
Maybe I'll just wait to get back in it then until this sell-off everyone.
The problem is if the sell-off doesn't come.
Yeah, and then you're making no money. I know a lot of people that have had that problem. They keep waiting for this thing that hasn't happened, and they've lost a fortune.
Well, that's why if you're thinking of getting in a stock, you can't go all in, just in case that happens.
I know, Bob. I love going all in though. That's just.
It's okay to do that on a day trade, but if you're looking at okay, I want to own Zillow, it's dangerous.
Yeah, and even with the day trade, I mean, Dad makes a great point, and I'm still. It's a constant journey and process with figuring out the discipline with the whole thing. But if you're trying to take on a position with, let's say, 1,000 shares for a day trade, there's no reason why you shouldn't start with 250 or 300. If you happen to be wrong about the move, you're not going to really feel as bad. You'll either cut your losses or you could average down a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I'll start with like 250, 300 shares, kind of dip my way in, and then based on how the market's going, go from there.
Yeah, when I'm day trading or swing trading, with the swing trades, they might last for a couple weeks. I actually like to do the opposite as average down, where I like to start with a smaller position, and once the action confirms that the trade was right, then I'll actually increase the size of the position. Even if, and Dad, I know we were talking about that yesterday, but even if the last move I'm only going to get 20 cents instead of the whole move 60, I'll just keep adding to it as it makes the move that I think it was going to make. And, at the top, then I'll start selling instead of start buying more if I'm wrong and it goes down.
Right. And in a way, you could do the opposite if the stock moves against you. Is if you, let's say you own 500 shares, rather than sell it all when it drops, to a level you didn't think it would go down to, sell half, and then if it continues to go down, you can make a decision. I like it here, or it's not going to work, and get out. But if you like it lower, then you're able to buy back what you sold a little bit higher, and you're still involved in the name. To get it, once you're out, it's hard to get back in a losing position. And maybe that's better, but sometimes it's better to just stay involved with a small amount of shares.
No, you're right. I mean, the mental burden, like even when I know I keep talking about Dave and Buster's on here, I'm afraid to go anywhere near that stock because I got burned on it, even though I like it when there's this recovery play happening. Like you saw yesterday, it was one of the leaders. Today, it's going to continue that action. But if small stocks are selling off and there's at all fears about the pandemic starting again or bankruptcies or whatnot, that stock's going to get derailed. And I was off my time on the rotation trade, even though it looks like that's now what's happening now.
I think that's a good thing you bring up, Dan. The whole sentiment, the psychology of like really making sure you're like a star quarterback with short-term memory where you're not thinking about a stock that you took a hit on and then refraining from getting back in it because you're like tentative. Oh, well, I lost money on that. Every day is different, as we know. So I think that's something, and we're all human. We've all done that.
You know what else happens? For example, Boeing, there was a period of time there where you could literally buy and sell 10 points over a 2 or 3 day period, in and out for 10 points. And then it didn't work. And when that happens, you stop doing it and you wait till you basically get a better feel for the stock.
The power
of wouldn't walk away from the stock completely.
I mean, everyone has to pivot. We see that in life and business with everything. It's the same when you're following charts. I know you guys were both big on for a while the pen day trade, swing trade. You get it into its, just like I've been doing with Zillow lately. It works until it doesn't, and then you find a new pick.
Right.
And go with that.
Yeah, what happened to Penn, it just got to the point where it was so hyperbolic that you didn't feel comfortable. Like where it is now, it's much more difficult to day trade because it went on this 10-point run.
Mm-hmm.
If this thing comes back, which it easily could, to 40 to 42.
That's why I dished it at 56, Bobby.
Right. I mean, in a sell-off, there's no reason this stock couldn't go to the low 40s.
I know. I felt like I made too much money on Penn, and I didn't want to be greedy. So I was like, all right, time to wait.
That was a classic breakout chart.
Yep.
People look for. And, if you're playing breakouts, you would have been all over this stock at 40 and a half, and you basically had a free ride, all the way up to the low 50s.
That's exactly what I did to a T.
Yeah, but that's unusual that it's that easy.
Well, that's when it feels too easy. It's time to move on. That's why I was like, this thing is just churning. At some point, what's up?
Now, if you're looking for a lot of volatility and action, these electric car stocks are unbelievable for day trading if you can catch them right. Yeah. I mean, off of the Tesla, you've had, a number of IPOs that are just coming out, it seems like weekly. I don't know, how this money is raised so quick, but there was a new one yesterday. XPEV is the symbol, and it came out at $15, and it closed 21.22, and it's up $3 plus today. Okay, and then you have NIO and you have LI, and I played LI yesterday and left the position for today, and the stock's up, but that's another one. If you're day trading, this thing moves in points.
Might as well play roulette with those stocks.
Well, you have to be quick.
I tried shorting NIO yesterday, and it was honestly working out to an extent. I ended up just getting out of the position because the market was about to close, and I didn't want to hold it overnight. And I ended up only gaining a couple cents on it, so it was basically like a flat trade. But then after hours, the thing just tanked. I just couldn't hold on to it because it's like you just said, been crazy. But that thing briefly got over 20, and maybe that's it. Yeah, I can't help but think this entire electric space rally that's been happening is going to end really, really poorly. But part of
going to NIO for a second, this is an example. Morgan Stanley upgraded that stock 2 days ago to an overweight with a $20.50 price target. Now, what is the motive of Morgan Stanley doing that? In my opinion, they're trying to get investment banking business from NIO. They know at some point this company is going to have to do some kind of raise of money, and they want to be the banker if they're already not the banker. I don't know who is the banker to NIO.
The Rolland Group.
And the day before, UBS upgraded them. UBS would try to do the same thing.
Is that when they got the big move from like 17 in a straight line
Yes.
up to? Yeah.
That was off of Morgan Stanley.
All right,
Gotcha.
guys. Well, it's 9 o'clock. Enjoy your Friday. End the week on a high note, and we'll see you Monday.
And hit the subscribe. Rolland Market Mashup. Go to our YouTube channel. Share with a friend, and have a good weekend.